Hi, I'm Ralph DeAmicis, one of the astrologers with the Planetary Calendar, and this is one of our portraits. And it's a little bit different because what I'm doing today is a portrait of America during the time of COVID. And this is partly in response to people asking us all the time, when is this going to get better? I mean, people on the street ask us, when's this going to get better? And better is a relative term in some ways. For those of us who might love spending time with our family and having time away from the world, maybe this is a great time. On the other hand, we also are sympathetic to the fact that other people are suffering, and we feel, even people who like being with their families and like working from home, also feel the impingement of not being able to go out to where we want to go and the effects of the economy in general. So we're all in this together, as you oftentimes hear. Now, what is going on? What we use as a chart for America, for the United States, is July 4th at noontime, which is different from other people, but we've just found that this chart works best. So let's look at the transits to this. And in other words, whatever happened to America? I'll tell you this much. The United States of America is still here. Its core personality is still here. Its core identity continues to exist. It's just having some tough transits. That's all that's happening. Sometimes transits are tougher than other times, as we know from life. The big thing that's been going on for a while is that there's a series of planets. It's Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn, compressive Capricorn. Directly opposite America's natal Venus, Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury in cheerful Cancer. So it's this heavy anchor is grabbed hold of America's ankle and is trying to pull it beneath the surface all the time, and that's how it feels. It's also a situation that when you have planets that are opposite your natal position, what happens is you feel like you don't have any leverage. And that's one of the things that people feel. They don't have leverage. The country doesn't have leverage over situations. And it's because you have these big planets in the opposite sign. And the chart we use, remember, is noontime because it's based on the idea that companies are calculated for noontime because it's when it's out there in the world. You know, you see the whole thing, it's all visible to everyone. And these planets are passing through the fourth house, the area of the home, and people are feeling this at home. But it's also perfectly symbolic that they are staying at home. They're being compressed or constricted into their homes. And this is kind of an interesting thing that it's making the United States withdraw from the public realm in some ways. It's withdrawing from being, a global power. Now, what else is going on? The other thing that's going on too is Mars right now is also in that seventh house. It just passed opposition with Saturn. The Saturn Libra rising in the chart is all about the pact that we have, our constitution, our agreement to work cooperatively, the agreement of the different states to work cooperatively. Mars in the seventh house means that is being continually challenged. And isn't that the truth, right? And it's being challenged by Mars and Aries, by a impetuous, a fiery, loudmouth type of personality energy. It's not necessarily one person, but a whole series of people are challenging this agreement that we have. And you hear this all the time in the news, that the Constitution is being challenged again. There's another constitutional crisis. How many times have you heard that? I mean, in the last several years. I mean, you could have gone decades without hearing that one. The big question everyone keeps asking is, when's it going to get better? What's better? What we can tell you is when it's going to change. And I mean, you don't have to be an astrologer to know this, but basically it's going to change about December. That's when the shift is going to start taking place. And everyone's going to say, well, duh, Ralph, the election's in November. I mean, of course it's going to change. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to be an astrologer to know that. But it does help to know the astrology about how the changes are going to take place and what the nature of that change is. Because what happens is we have had Saturn and Jupiter, the compressor and the expander, both in Capricorn, Saturn sign, for the past year or so. Saturn stays in the sign 2.5 years. Jupiter stays in the sign about a year. Pluto has been in Capricorn for quite a while. So that has been supercharging this overall effect. What happens in December? Jupiter and Saturn both change signs into Aquarius, which is the extrovert, dynamic side of Saturn. And I have to tell you, while Saturn is a tough planet in a lot of different ways, Saturn in Aquarius is the least open to new ideas. Saturn in Capricorn, not so much. It wants to say, this is the old model, this is the model we've used for centuries, we're going to keep using this model. Saturn in Aquarius says, that old model, it stunk. It stunk. And we're going to move past that. And we're going to look at things more in terms of our overall community. When the sun passes through Aquarius each year, traditionally in agricultural towns, that was the time when people started doing a lot of wheeling and dealing, a lot of trading, saying, the food's getting a little tight, but I've got a bag full of grain here, and you got a bag full of potatoes, and I could use some potatoes, and you could use some grain. Let's make a deal. It was a coming together of the marketplace. And that marketplace, that's symbolic, that's Aquarius. And it also has a lot to do with the fact that your society comes together to help those in need. When within the society they say, it's so-and-so, they're a little stuck. Why don't you and I both give some potatoes and some rice to them? That's the Saturn and Aquarius energy. So as Saturn and Jupiter both enter Aquarius, one right after the other, this is announcing a pretty big shift. And they're coming together in an exact conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. 0 degrees. Wow. Talk about a new phase happening. And realize, too, that while the last several years have been difficult with a very contentious, cantankerous, and not especially honest administration in the White House, has challenged a lot of, current standards. What it has done is it's motivated a lot of people, a tremendous amount of the population, on the other side. I mean, the unification among the Democratic Party, which is not everyone. I mean, the number of people who are actually tied to the parties is not the majority of the society. Maybe it is, but I know the Republican Party is very small. Their numbers are a little larger, I think. But there's a lot of independents, but a lot of them have been motivated to say, wait a second, we need to have more of a voice, and we're not getting it. And so that's one thing that has happened, and that epitomizes the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. The community voice, the brilliance of the group. When you get the voices talking, you get everyone's ideas, you equalize it out, you come to a midpoint, that's the proper path. When everyone's voice is heard, because you get the collective genius of the community. So will having the collective genius of the community make things better starting in December? I certainly hope so. So that's our little portrait for America in the time of COVID. Hope you found that illuminating. Make sure you see our forecast. We do our forecast for the next upcoming week every Friday, and we do our portraits. Next one will be on a person on Tuesdays. You can visit our website, planetarycalendar.com, to get your planetary calendar, or to get our companion book, or your day planner. And hoping that everything goes well for all of us. Be well. Thanks so much.